Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Core Productions with my co-host Stacie here to talk about the original Quantum Leap, Season 4, Episode 17, titled Roberto. The episode's description reads as follows. In the role of a Geraldo-type journalist, Sam and an asthmatic woman try and uncover the truth about what is going on at a local plant. Well, that is just a terrible episode description. I should have gone to Al's Place for that one.
We've been finding a lot of terrible episode descriptions lately.
I'll admit that I didn't exactly read that like I have been. But yeah, this one I did not read, and it's not that great. But anyway, the episode was written by Christopher Punthel. He also wrote an X-Files episode that I'm doing pretty recently. The episode was directed by Scott Bakula, his second of 3 directorial stints, his last being Promised Land in Season 5. The episode takes place on January 27th, 1982, and originally aired on March 11th, 1992.
I have it took place on July 27th. Again, one of us is probably right.
Yeah, I'm sure. Before going any further, I'll tell you a couple things. One, this is a Ask for a Read podcast, so if you haven't watched the episode, I highly recommend you go and check it out, and then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on the platforms this podcast is now available on, please follow and feel free to check out my YouTube channel, Quorum Productions, where additional content can be discoverable, Quantum Leap related and otherwise. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, and subscribe to my channel. Shoutouts. Ashley Wright commented a week behind, saying that one of the guys that appeared in that episode was also in Coming to America with Eddie Murphy. And I'm sure that's true. I think I actually saw that credit, but I didn't take note of it. Mimi Gallup says that last week was an alright episode, not a favorite. Thank you for the shout out. I only like the scene where Al gets scared by Sam because Al is always scaring Sam. And she says Brian Green was a good guest to have on here. And the next episode is alright, not a favorite. And she said that she heard the plane that they used for this episode either belonged to Donald Belzerio or it was used in another Belzerio show. I did not look into that, but
it was used in a show, and I forget the name of it now, but I saw that somewhere.
Was it Jag?
No, it was something with a bunch of words. Multi-word title show.
Okay.
But I don't know. I don't know what. It's not something I'm familiar with.
Okay.
We also have a birthday shout out.
Yes, we do.
Today is Serenity's 12th birthday from the Quantum Leap podcast.
Our new
my new bestie.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Serenity.
And Alpha. Do you have more?
I thought you were done with shout out. Sorry.
Do you have another birthday shout out?
Not off the top of my head.
No.
Do you got another one?
Nope. Okay, so Alpha. Roberto is a top 5 episode in his book. I used to watch talk shows all summer long in the mid-1980s, from Bill Donahue to Oprah to Gerardo. And I'm wondering if you watch Jerry Springer, which is what this episode makes me think of nowadays. He also was a little confused about Ghost Ship. He said, so in Ghost Ship, Cooper was a World War I vet whose rescue boat gets torpedoed in 1918, but he is found by a freighter in the World War II era, having traveled in time as a result of his experience in the Triangle. He would have experienced major culture time shock. He somehow... So
Alpha got it backwards.
Yeah.
Is the result of this.
Basically, he thought that, Cooper traveled backwards in time to 1918.
Or forwards in time, is what he thought. He thought that Coop was from World War I.
Oh, okay.
But in fact, Coop was from World War II, and
the
ship was from World War I.
Yeah, the ship moved forward in time to pick him up, and we don't know...
Or something.
We don't know exactly what happened here, but my interpretation was that the Cyclops appeared in the 1940s to pick up Cooper, and then the ship went down.
Yeah, maybe it was leaping.
Maybe, perhaps, we don't know. So
maybe the Bermuda Triangle is the hub for Al's Place.
Maybe.
You know, the actual Al, the bartender.
Right. I got you. All right, so, Stacie, your thoughts on this week's episode?
All right, Roberto. It's one that, it's okay. I enjoyed it this watch through. I think I got a little more out of it this time than maybe I had in the past. It's always just kind of been an episode that's there for me.
Now, did we make the connection between this episode and The Outsiders when we were
Now,
originally talking about
I know we mentioned it, but yeah, watching it this time, there was very strong parallels.
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
I don't think I appreciated how strong those parallels were before. My note on this episode is it's parallel to The Outsider with hints of closure encounters. And of course, that's like backwards because this came first, obviously.
Right, yeah,
It's more
yeah.
like they, parallel this. But yeah, super strong Outsider vibes. And what's interesting about that is this is our Scott Bakula directed episode, and that was our Deborah Pratt directed episode.
Oh, yeah, what do you know?
So, yeah. I mean, they didn't write them, and
Right.
they didn't choose which episodes they're directing, per se. But we got very strong influences there. And it feels like there's definitely... I don't know. It feels like there's some intentional nods, but every time I say that about the 2022 series, somebody says it wasn't intentional, so I don't know.
I think someone was lying, honestly. All right. So anything else to say before diving in?
We might as well just get right to it.
All right.
Yeah. Destiny, New Mexico.
Yep. The episode begins with Sam on some kind of show that quickly gets out of control as a fight breaks out. Sam ends up getting hit by, or getting headbutted, and credits. The guest who ends up headbutting him is played by Donald Gibb. 98 credits for him, including an episode of The X-Files Season 1 Conduit, which I covered, as well as Hancock.
He was also in 2 episodes of Magnum P.I., an episode of Early Edition. The character's name here is Jeters, which I don't think they actually said in the show.
No,
but
I don't think so.
That's who he was. And the man he got in a fight with was credited as Man with Glasses. He is played by Charles Daughtry. He was in an episode of Happy Days and an episode of Wings.
Nice. Okay, so after the credits, when we come back, Sam awkwardly ends his show.
Yeah, he's told to do the wrap-up.
Well,
And
yeah. The guests in the background are threatening him as he's trying to wrap up the show and giving a preview of what is to come. The person who's in charge of running the show, the background guy, the station manager, congratulates him on a great show and is told Earl wants to see him.
Was this the character of Tim? I didn't figure out who Tim is.
I'm not sure.
So
who
this might
is.
be Tim.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and say this is Tim somebody, and it might be this guy. Tim was played by Michael Hintzman, who was on 3 episodes of Law and Order.
Okay.
And again, I'm not sure this is Tim, because I couldn't match up Tim, but I also didn't match up this guy, so that's probably good chances that that's him.
Yeah, there we go.
And we were told what tomorrow's show is going to be about. Animal Friends and Lovers, Sunday School Teachers for Marijuana, and Dr. Laura Schlesinger on Centerfolds. And so we'll get to see that show a little later.
Sounds like a fun time. On the way out, he meets with the sarcastic Janny, who doesn't think much of him. Al appears 5 minutes and 24 seconds in the episode to say he likes to leap already. Janny is played by Delane Matthews, 41 credits for her, including 3 episodes of The Shield, 98 episodes of Dave's World, which was with Harry Anderson, the late Harry Anderson, and 27 episodes of General Hospital.
And I don't have anything different than that.
Okay, so Sam ends up picking up a phone to explain what happened to his head to Al. Al gives him the rundown. He mentions that he's a smart mouth that led to him getting fired a lot, but it seems to be paying off in his current job.
Yeah, so basically he says that his career is about to take off, which I have some issue with that because very soon we're going to learn that that's not the case.
Right.
So I don't know why that's the case in this moment. But we're told his career is finally going places, and all Sam has to do to keep him in line for his career is to keep acting like this wise guy that Roberto is. We learned that it's 1982 and we're in Destiny, New Mexico. He works at this station, which is KDNM TV, and that's about all we know so far. Because of course they don't know anything yet.
Right.
Because why would they?
Right. Of course not. We meet the manager Earl, who congratulates him and wants to build another show around him getting hit. Earl is played by Alan Oppenheimer. A whopping 345 acting credits for him. That's quite absurd. Including 2 episodes of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated series.
Yeah, he's a very, very busy voice actor. At least he was in the 90s. Including, he's Vanity Smurf in like all of the Smurfs projects. And he's Skeletor in all of that stuff. So that's a lot of the credits there. Because they've got both of those franchises have tons of spin-offy things.
He was also in Star Trek Next Generation and a doomed captain in the Season 2 finale of Deep Space Nine.
He also was in an episode of Voyager as well. I saw these 3 different Star Trek appearances, and again, tons and tons and tons of voice work.
Right. Jan snarks at him, and Al gives him a retort, which gets a, hey, behave, kids, otherwise you're going to go to bed without supper from Earl. Earl wants to know what ideas Sam has, and he gives off a bunch of them.
Yeah. Crazy ideas, which I think Sam missed the idea that if you're going to do these shows, you actually need to like have somebody to back the story up.
Right.
I mean, I get that most of it is fictionalized, but you still need a basis of the story to start, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody who claims this.
Roberto's going to come back and Earl's going to be like, so when are we doing the show? And Roberto's going to be like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was women who claim to have slept with Elvis's ghost and JFK's evil twin who just escaped from a sanitarium.
Ooh.
I mean, it sounds entertaining, but you got to come up with these guys
right.
to make that happen. We also learned during this some history about Janie. She was a big shot in Chicago. She recently moved to New Mexico to take this less than thrilling job here because she has asthma. And I thought this was really a kind of strange plot line. Like, I get that your asthma might be worse in a city because of, like, pollution and stuff. Mm-hmm. But, like, the overall, like, I gave up my career and moved here because I have asthma didn't make sense to me. I wasn't following.
Yeah. I mean,
very clearly of how that works.
Yeah, I'm not really sure, but it's a setup of the plot line for this episode, I think.
And it's more parallels here to The Outsider, because, of course, we had, the same, very similar storyline where, I forget that character's name, but she was, a big-time somebody, and then now she's in a small local place.
Janie continues to snark at him, and Sam sarcastically asks what earth-shattering story she happens to be working on, which is about a full-service gas stations that don't deliver. Sam makes some sarcastic remarks, which leads her to betting $100 that he couldn't do a serious story.
She bet him $50, and he upped it to $100. Sam upped it to $100, and so he's just like going off the rails now, like. You have no idea why you're here, but you're going to go start, like, making bets with this woman about what a good journalist you can be.
Not to mention winding up all these stories that Roberto's going to have no idea what you're talking about.
Right, so he seemed to jump right into this world and is rolling with it.
She gets a call, and it's from someone she seems to think might be a serious story after all. But they go and talk to the guy who's describing an alien encounter.
Yeah, and this is the character of Mr. Red Norton. He is played by Dennis Fimple. He was in House of a Thousand Corpses. And I had to go real far back for this one. He was in 3 episodes of Petticoat Junction.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, way back.
So initially this guy seems like a total crackpot. He's just describing aliens and all this.
He was seeing aliens, and his story takes place at 2:30 a.m. on his way home from the bar. So, how reliable is he? They don't think there's much of a story here. But yeah, he claims he saw aliens between Blue Rock and Whispering Pine Lake. And they had big, flobby arms and legs.
And although this seems like just a throwaway story, it does end up factoring into the episode very much like what happened in The Outsider. They end up at Saxon's fertilizer plant talking to Egg Saxon. I have no idea why they ended up here.
I think it was a scheduled interview, something they were talking about, like new jobs.
So, what I'm really confused about here, Janie and Roberto are partners? Because they're acting like it.
The way I took it is he is tagging along with her for the day because of the bet that he could do a serious story. Before they go there, though, Al points out, and I love this part about this episode, he points out that Project Quantum Leap is right over there, 30 miles into the mountains near this spot where they're interviewing Mr. Norton. And Al was enjoying this very meta moment. He's like, I'm right there right now. Mm-hmm. Not right here now, but right there now. Like, in the future. That's where I'm standing, is right there. But that won't be built for 7 years from where Sam is standing.
So they're at the plant talking to Ed Saxton, played by Jerry Hardin. 168 credits for him, including multiple appearances on TNG. He was Deep Throat in The X-Files. I've covered all those episodes at this point. Though
all of them?
Not all the ones that he's appeared in just yet. The ones that he appeared in that he was still alive in. Not all of them have dropped yet, but they're there.
So they're upcoming.
Yes. And a Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman episode.
He was also in one episode of Sliders.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that was a 4th season episode, if I recall correctly.
Okay.
Actually, the season finale of season 4.
Well, you know it a lot better than I do.
The last episode that Jerry O'Connell appeared in.
Ah.
So Janie has an asthma attack, which is a bit of foreshadowing.
And then we meet Rick. Rick Upfield. He's played by Marcus Giamatti. He was in an episode of Fringe, an episode of X-Files, an episode of Bones, and 2 episodes of NCIS Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
And Rick, he's kind of along for the tour. I'm not really sure what his role is. He works at the plant in some capacity. And they make a big deal of the fact that he has a bandage on his hand. I'm not sure why, like, the news cares that this guy has a Band-Aid on. But they're making a big deal out of it. And Saxton says that they had a small fire here last week, and Rick burned his hand picking up a fire extinguisher. Which isn't true, but also really kind of a weird...
lie?
A weird lie, yeah. Like, why is it anybody's business why he has a bandage on his hand? Maybe he cut himself in the kitchen making a sandwich.
He could have. They end up taking a tour. Sam stays behind, and Al tells him that she drove off a cliff.
She being Janie.
And that's how she originally died.
And that's supposed to happen in 2 days.
Yep.
It was an apparent accident because she fell asleep at the wheel.
And Roberto shortly after quit the show and dropped out of show business.
Yeah, and they kind of make this insinuation like they think maybe Roberto had something to do with her death, even though they just said it was an accident. I wasn't really following how they jumped to that.
I mean, that was basically Al doing the jumping, and basically Sam was like, "No, I don't think he was involved. I don't see why that would have happened." Anyway,
and this is where it hit me like, okay, but wait a minute. In like the last scene, you told us his career is on its way up, and now all of a sudden we find out in 2 days he disappears and never does another show.
Right.
So why didn't you know that when you were telling us his career is going places?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe his career was going on the upswing now, but was soon
but
crash.
In 2 days he's gonna quit. Like, you think you'd have known that already,
right? You would think so, but
unless Sam changed history just by making this bet,
maybe.
But in that case, what were you here to do anyways? Expose this guy, but you weren't supposed to have anything to do with it,
right? So
I don't know. I don't understand.
Meanwhile, Sam does a show with Laura Schlesinger. She's an actual talk show host, I believe.
She's a psychologist person. She's a personality, appearing as herself. And she's along with the characters of Don Bartlett and Charlene Lyles, who are juniors at the University of New Mexico, and they're here to talk about a calendar that they posed for. And basically the argument is, are you creating art or are you being exploited as women in bathing suits? The character of Dawn is played by Sherry Lynn Rothman, whose only other credit was an episode of Who's the Boss? Cool. And Charlene doesn't have a credit because she didn't speak. So we don't know who she is.
And this whole show ends up leading to Sam basically doing half the show in his boxers.
Yeah, Dr. Schlesinger kind of dared him to do the show in his boxers because he was trying to make the argument that that men objectify themselves just as much as women do, and she didn't buy that. So yeah, he ends up stripping, which seemed to go over well. Everyone was saying the show went really great. It was a hit, but Sam said he's never been so humiliated in his whole life.
Right. I don't know. He's been on some weeks that I think
have been a little humiliating.
Yes.
I mean, there was the whole diaper episode.
Right. Yeah, he ran around in a diaper. So I would think that would be more embarrassing, but, whatever. Janie catches him talking to himself, and Janie gets a call, and it turns out to be that 50 sheep are missing right where the other dude saw aliens.
Yeah, where Mr. Norton saw the aliens. This is Mr. Chi is reporting that 50 of his sheep went missing at Blue Rock and Whispering Pine Lake, the same place. And so now they realize that was 2 nights ago, the same night that the aliens supposedly appeared. So they're seeing a connection. They know something is going on, and it's a very big coincidence. This connection also has something to do with that other story they're also just covered.
Right.
That's a very big coincidence in my book. But
yeah, whatever. We see Sexton talking to Earl. Sam catches this. Sam gets a call from a guy we saw at the plant.
This was Rick. Yeah.
And he insists on speaking to him. Sam invites Janie along.
And they're supposed to meet at 9 o'clock at the Lost Dolphin. And again, this is so parallel to The Outsider.
Yeah.
Like this whole plot line.
Yeah. Except in this case, Rick is actually dead.
Right.
Whereas that in the Outsider...
Spoilers if you haven't seen that.
Yeah. So they arrive to find ambulances and him dead on the ground.
He was hit and run on his way into the bar. And Sam pulls Janie away. She doesn't want to walk away. She's like, we got to stay. We got to figure this out. We got to talk to the police. And Sam's like, no, we got to do this ourselves.
Right.
Which feels a little weird for Sam. That doesn't feel like his usual attitude.
No, you wouldn't think so.
And he finds Rick's ID badge on the ground, and they take that. Again, she wants to give it to the police, but he says that's not going to help them.
So, Sam and Janie end up bonding. Her career was derailed by her asthma.
And this is while they're back at the studio late at night. They're reviewing the footage of the Saxton interview. And again, it's reminding me of scenes from The Outsider when we had Ben and Addison working all night trying to solve the case.
Yep. And they watch the footage of talking to Sexton, and then they notice that no one is wearing a badge. Sam insists that they have to go to the plant that night. Presumably because the next night that she's gonna die. So
right, and he jumps very quickly to the fact that this badge must lead to a secret part of the plant. Again, that seems like a big stretch to me that he got there so easy, but whatever.
So they go to the plant and make an excuse to get into the plant by themselves due to a lost earring.
Yeah, she pretends that she lost one of her earrings in the plant when they were there the day before. And this is the foreman. His name is Hank. He's played by Victor Talmadge. He was in an episode of In Plain Sight. He was in an episode of Star Trek Enterprise. And he was in an episode of SG-1. And again, he's the foreman here. He is reluctant to let them go. I mean, that was the right call to not let these people randomly walk around your plant. I mean, even if you don't have secrets you're trying to hide, it seems like a bad idea to just let people wander around because there's a liability there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Maybe you should have escorted them, sent someone to escort them. But he ends up letting them go because she says that Sexton already okayed her coming to look for her earring in the plant at 3 a.m.
Right.
And, on the aside, she says to Sam, like, well, would you call and ask the president of the company at 3 a.m. about an earring? And this reminded me a lot of a scene in an episode of Sliders. That didn't involve an earring, but it was a similar situation where they pretended somebody, and I think it was Arturo's double. They pretended that, like, he had given them the okay to be there.
Okay.
And the assumption was, well, they're not going to call to check because it's the middle of the night and they're not going to wake this guy up to ask him.
Oh, yeah, okay. That does sound familiar.
Yeah, that's what this reminded me.
It was also similar to the finale of this series, the series finale. There was a similar little thing.
Oh, yeah, they did do that, didn't they?
Yeah. All right. So Al tells him that the pass is the key. Rick's pass is the key to something. Al has Ziggy try to find the location. And then as they drive, Al reappears and points them in the right direction. They find the door, use the key card, and enter. And they find orange space suits.
Well, they're hazmat suits.
Right. Which resembles the aliens that
right. This is the aliens that collect dead sheep. So they now put all the pieces together that these guys are the ones who were out there, and the sheep weren't stolen as much as they died, and the people collected them to hide it, and then the drunk guy thought they were aliens.
Meanwhile, the people are looking for them, and then Sam and Janie realizes that the company killed the sheep, and that perhaps they are working on chemical weapons. Al realizes that some of the people here are very military, and they eventually are found by the guys looking for him, and they act all cordial, but you get this little sinister vibe from the two of them, from Hank specifically. Earl doesn't buy what they're selling, because it was close ties to Sexton. Oh yeah. Okay.
It's really funny because their last scene in the plant is Janie's like, Earl's gonna love this, and
right.
Earl did not love this.
Nope. Yeah. Basically, he doesn't agree with them. He doesn't think there's anything going on, and he's kind of blinded by his close ties to Sexton because they eventually end up talking him into letting them go and do a report.
And I don't know, how did they get in with the cameras to, like, start this report?
I have no idea.
But that's where we pick up is Sam brings a live crew there to the door. But they realized that the lock was changed because obviously these people knew what you were up to. They knew what you found, so they changed everything. And they go in, and it's just a janitor's closet now.
Right, with a fake wall. And at this point, Earl is kind of pissed. He ends up pulling the plug.
Yeah, and this is where we also meet their cameraman, Ernesto. Ernesto is played by Paul Felix Montez. He was in an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Ooh. Sam ends up offering an apology to Sexton and wants him to appear on a show to do a public apology.
But we know he's lying anyways because we saw it. But Al goes through the wall. He does some hologram stuff. He says there's 6 feet of dirt behind the wall, but once you get past that, there's the tunnel to the secret lab.
And Sexton is not really sold here. Meanwhile, Janie is pissed that Sam is admitting wrongdoing. Sam offers to hand the badge over to the police, and Sam says he's trying to buy themselves some time. Janie is annoyed that she feels steps behind Sam, which she does not usually feel.
Yeah, because Sam must be a little smarter than Roberto.
I would think so.
Yeah,
Sam is smarter than
And Al has a great line here. He's like, that's what you get working with a genius.
Right.
He pays Sam a nice little backhanded compliment there.
Yes. Al does an and now she doesn't die from a car accident, but an asthma attack.
Tomorrow morning.
Ooh.
It's very soon.
Yes. So we have another show for Sam about vegetables.
Yeah, Friends of Fruits and Veggies is this show, which was just a funny little clip.
Right. And Sam is trying to hack into the computer with Ziggy's help that Janie was starting to try to get into, which he finally manages at night.
Yeah, so Ziggy steps in and tries helping. And at first I was like, because as soon as they ask, Al starts spitting commands that Ziggy's giving. And I'm like, why did Ziggy come up with that so quickly? When Ziggy can never find even a basic search engine thing so quickly. But then it took them all night. And so I was like, okay, I guess it wasn't that quick.
Right.
Ziggy just knew what to get them started, but it wasn't actually the solution to the problem. So yeah, they work on this all night. And finally... they're able to break into the plant's computer system.
But they instantly know back at the plant. Sexton wants Jenny killed. Roberto, he figures he could just buy off. And Sexton has an idea for murder that amuses him. He's like,
yeah. And this explains why in the original history Roberto left television and disappeared, because he was paid off to disappear, basically.
Sam realizes that a chemical they are working on that can lead to an instant asthma attack. And suddenly their access is done. They know that the company knows what they're doing. And Sam tells Janie that if they keep doing this, they will likely try and kill them too. And Janie says, let them try. And while Janie sleeps, Sam keeps typing, and the dude from the plant,
the foreman,
Hank, right, sneaks up and replaces her inhaler. Now, my question is, how does Sam ever realize that before it's too late?
How did Sam realize that? How didn't he see him do it? And by the end, I was wondering, like, oh, did they know?
Right.
Like, was this whole thing a setup? Was she pretending to be asleep?
Right.
Was he pretending not to hear the guy come in just to catch him?
Right.
But yeah, because they're tricking us too, right? They're tricking the audience. They don't want us to know what's really going on. But watching it, like, knowing what's happening, it was a little strange. And I was like, well, how didn't he know that this guy's there? And actually, in my memory, I had this all wrong. I don't remember this scene. When I'm watching it, I was like, oh, they're showing us the inhaler being switched. Like, in my memory, like, we were left as an audience to figure that out ourselves, that happened.
Right.
But no, they actually show the guy sneaking in and swapping out the inhaler. And I don't know, I was wondering, was that a little too much hand-holding for the audience?
Perhaps.
Or is it just feel like that because I know the story?
I don't know. I think that scene was necessary, but I don't quite get how the way it's shown, how they ever figure it out before Janie, does the whole inhaler thing and dies. Like, I don't know how they prevent that from happening.
Right.
It's just, especially
he figured out that this is going to cause an asthma attack, and that's probably how she ends up having an asthma attack.
So he was already aware that the possibility of her death.
I mean, he knows she's going to die from an asthma attack.
Yeah.
He knows originally she died a different way, so obviously these people are responsible. It's not just an accident.
Right, yeah.
He knows that they have this drug or chemical that would do that. But yeah, there's a misbeat here somewhere.
Yeah.
And it was intentional, again, because they're trying to throw us off as an audience and make us think she actually died.
So Sam calls Sexton to tell him that Janny is dead. And Sam is upset, supposedly, accuses him, and sure enough, he tries to buy him off with a fund for her to be managed by Sam.
Yeah, $50,000 check in Roberto's name to be set up as a scholarship in Janny's memory. Sam again wants him to get on the air so he can apologize, and the guy's like, why would you do that?
Right.
And he says, well, because I want to make it $100K. So he's playing this line ball that we know Roberto is.
Right.
To make it look like he's just trying to get more money out of him and make it look like he really is going to grovel at this guy's feet. But really, it's just a setup, just like in The Outsider.
Yeah, exactly. So the show, What Happens When Reporters Are Wrong, starts, and he shouts out Jan, who is supposedly dead. He talks to Sexton and lays out his trap.
Now, here's what I wanted to know. Does this staff think she's actually dead? Or do people know? Does Earl know? Somebody has to know. At least Earl has to know.
I mean, so...
But they show, like, this whole staff, and they all look so sad, because, like, she's dead.
Except they don't look that sad. Like, I don't know. It doesn't look like Earl is all that broken up. He looks very serious, but he doesn't look
He would have had to have known. Right?
He doesn't look, like, heartbroken.
But maybe, like, some of the just set people don't know.
Right, yeah. So... he brings out the inhaler and suggests that it was poisoned with the chemical, and then in pops Janny, and
alive and well.
Yes. Ooh, surprise! He then sprays Sexton with it, and he reacts in fear, but it's not in fact actually poison.
Yeah, so he's making it clear that he thinks that this inhaler is deadly.
Right.
But Sam tells him it's okay. This is just one he bought in the store this morning. The real poison one is in the hands of the police, which bought them a search warrant to go search behind that fake wall in the plant. And also, in my memory, I thought we had scenes where we see them go, like, see somebody breaking through the wall, but apparently that never happened.
Yeah, that just happened in your imagination.
We don't actually see what's behind the wall, but Al says that did it. He's now convicted of murder and attempted murder. That, of course, was Rick's murder and Janie's attempted murder. And that's a wrap on the case.
Yeah, and then Sam concludes the show. Janie says he owes him $100, but he says he'll just buy her a nice bottle of wine anyway.
Champagne.
Champagne.
Because they had a discussion earlier about champagne.
And she just says nah, and Sam ends up weeping.
And one of my favorite lines from this episode is when Sam's doing his wrap-up. He says, and tomorrow, I'm going to tell the story about the time I was kidnapped by aliens and held in an all-white room. Insinuating that, Roberto might remember his leap and come back and talk about the waiting room.
Right. Oh, yeah. That's funny.
Yeah. So I think that's a funny little... See, I'm trying to be funny.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, probably he won't remember, but if there's a chance he remembers, he's surely going to come talk about it on his show.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's see who else we had in this episode. The mirror image of Roberto is played by Andrew Roa. He was in one episode of Adam Room's Everything.
Oh, okay.
And he did additional voices in Pocahontas 2. And let's see. There's a character of Esther. I didn't catch who Esther is. But Esther was played by Barbara Tarbuck. She's in 5 episodes of American Horror Story. She was in an episode of The Event. And she was in an episode of Star Trek Enterprise.
Oh, okay.
And then there's a deputy. I missed there being a deputy.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
So there's a deputy somewhere that popped up in this episode, played by Greg Binkley. He was in an episode of NCIS, an episode of NCIS New Orleans, and 18 episodes of My Name is Earl.
Sweet.
And that's all I've got for all of the actors in this episode. One thing I forgot to mention off at the top, in that very first scene where we met Earl, in one of the monitors, this is a cool little nod, is the King Thunder is on like a commercial or something. That's, the band from Glitter Rock.
Oh, yeah, okay. Cool.
So you can see that in the monitor.
Yeah, I never noticed that. Oh, that's pretty sweet. Yeah, so that's our episode. Pretty decent episode. Not too bad.
Again, I think I enjoyed it more this time, and probably because I was picking up on all of these parallels to The Outsider. And again, that's a weird relationship, right? Because obviously this one came first, but in my mind, I'm like, oh, this is like what happened in The Outsider, as opposed to in The Outsider, this is like what happened in Roberto.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know we mentioned Roberto when we did that episode, but the story wasn't fresh in my head, so I know I didn't see just quite how similar the stories were.
Right, yeah.
Just that it was about a reporter investigating and finding a scandal, that involved pesticides. But other than that, like, there's so many plot points that are just very parallel and very...
Very, very much so.
Very, yeah.
So next week, we got It's a Wonderful Weep.
Ooh.
AKA the first episode of this series that I ever watched live.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned that before.
I had no idea what the heck was going on.
And you had no idea what you were getting into.
Right. Nope.
And look where you are now.
Right. I didn't realize that 30 years later, I'd be meeting Scott Bakula twice in the same year, and possibly a third time.
Right. Seeing him 3 times live, at least.
Right, yeah. Oh, before we get to that episode, though, we will have a podcast.
Very special episode dropping.
Yes.
Very special. Not that special.
Of our time to Manipula Mancha. My crazy partner decided to take 5 pages of notes on that trip.
I didn't want to forget anything, so I wrote it down.
Basically, it's not just about our trip anymore. It's about everybody's
trip. About everybody's trip. Everybody being, we met up with people from the Quantum Leap podcast and Brian Green, who was with us here last week recording, and we had an amazing weekend.
Yes.
Like all of us in our adventures in New Hampshire. So we're going to talk all about that, and that's going to drop sometime soon.
Yeah,
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I don't know when exactly, but it should drop before we do another Quantum Leap podcast.
I would hope so, yes.
All right, so anything else to say before we move on?
I think we got it.
All right, we'd like to hear from you. Stacie can be reached at.
I can be reached on Twitter, X, Instagram, and Threads at TV and Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join one of my Core Productions Facebook pages. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a copy. You can join the Core Productions membership for 99 cents a month. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to our channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Core Productions, signing off.